The towel dropped from my hands, but I didn't flinch. Her laugh, a dry, hollow chuckle that bounced off the laundry room tiles, hung in the air like mildew. "You're lucky I even let you touch me." That's what she said. Like I was some leper who'd won a raffle. Like decades of providing, fixing, covering her mistakes, and paying off her credit card messes were just some pathetic tribute she tolerated out of politeness. She turned, humming, tossing her blouse into the dryer like nothing had happened. I just watched her. Not angry, not even sad. Something quieter, sharper. I folded the last t-shirt, that old one from the state fair we went to, before her veneers, before her Pilates instructor with the stupid name, before she stopped asking how my day was. I folded it with more care than I'd handled her in months. Then I placed it neatly on the stack and walked out. In the hallway, I heard her phone buzz. A giggle. Another message. Another little compliment from whoever she thought was her escape hatch. Her voice changed when she texted lately. Eerier, like she was suddenly 20 again. I used to like that sound. Now it just reminded me how good liars always enjoy the setup. I passed the hall mirror and looked at myself. Wrinkled, maybe slower than I was at 40. Sure, but I built machines that could carve titanium to half a human hair's width. I ran a team of 20 men who didn't dare miss a measurement. I wasn't some slob hoping for scraps of affection. But in this house, I was a placeholder. And placeholders don't argue. We execute. I went downstairs into the office. That drawer hadn't been opened in a while. Not since I printed out her client meeting calendar from iCloud and noticed it included one too many Tuesday dinners at the Burstone. Conveniently, never billed to the brokerage account. Inside the drawer was the box. A small, smooth oak box I carved myself after retiring. It was supposed to hold cufflinks. Instead, it held clarity. I opened it. Empty still. Not for long. I flipped open my laptop. No rush, no drama. Just a man doing what he always did, cataloging, protecting, cleaning up someone else's mess. The folder was still there, waiting for the day she smirked. First up, email printouts. A realtor friend of hers, Celeste, had CC'd her on some messages about fun weekends in Ridge Hill. The dates matched exactly with the retreats she claimed were for training. One even included a rental car receipt in Vanessa's name, with a second driver added. Not me. Then the texts. I'd synced her phone to the family iPad 6 months ago. She never noticed. Thought it was just for streaming Netflix in the guest room. One thread stuck out. Can't wait to see you outside the sheets for once LOL. He responded with a thumbs up and a picture. Him, shirtless in the mirror of a hotel bathroom. I recognized the wallpaper. The Burstone again. Funny how betrayal has a scent. That place always smelled like lavender and stale desperation. She came down later that night, makeup off, wearing that smug little robe she wore when she wanted to play affectionate wife. You didn't say good night, she said, fake concern painting her tone. I figured you were tired of touching me, I replied. Smiled. She blinked. The moment passed. You're being dramatic, she muttered. I nodded slowly, like a man who didn't mind being underestimated. Because men like me, we don't need second chances. We need evidence. The house went quiet around 11:17 p.m. Vanessa had dozed off in bed, tablet sliding off her chest, some real estate podcasts still whispering about market trends she didn't understand without her assistant explaining them. Her face twitched in sleep. Maybe some dream where she was still the prize she imagined herself to be. Holding court on Instagram, in her little beige Range Rover, wine glass in hand, fake laughs echoing in empty houses for sale. I stood in the hallway for a few minutes, listening to her soft snores and the occasional ding of some unread message from the man she claimed was just a contact in the industry. Then I turned back into the office. No lights, just the desk lamp. Just me in the box. I slid open the drawer. There it was again. Small, square oak. Smooth edges, brass hinges I polished myself last spring. I had made it with the intention of gifting it to her for our anniversary. Funny, back then, I thought we still had one coming. I placed the box in the center of the desk and opened it. Still empty, but not for long. Not tonight. To the left of the desk, my printer clicked on. The first of the emails began to slide out. Celeste's messages, forwarded flights, not listed under our joint account. Vanessa always thought I was the kind of man who didn't check receipts. Maybe that was true, but I checked patterns, and people like her always left fingerprints. I organized the emails by date. Chronology matters when you're about to dismantle someone's sense of safety, The printer hummed in that low, methodical way only an old workhorse machine can. I liked the sound. Reminded me of the shop floor, steady, deliberate, never in a hurry but never stopping. I moved the fresh pages into a neat stack. The paper was warm in my hands, edges crisp. I didn't read them again. I'd already memorized every line. Instead, I reached for the iPad. It was unlocked, screen glowing faintly in the dark like it was waiting for me. She never realized the backup sync was still on. In her mind, tech was just wires and chargers. To me, it was leverage. I tapped into her messages. No need to dig through everything. Patterns had already told me where to look. I went straight for the thread with J. The first message in the thread was from 4 months ago. Hey, still good for Tuesday? His reply, of course. Bring that black dress, winky face. Timestamps don't lie. Tuesday afternoon, she told me she was hosting a team-building mixer. I'd eaten leftovers alone while she was at the Burstone with him. I screenshotted the entire conversation, careful to capture the dates, times, and his phone number in every frame. Saved them to a folder on my desktop labeled June Justice. And here's the thing. Vanessa thought I was slow. She used to joke about it at dinner parties. You move like you're buffering, she once said, and the table laughed. I smiled back, because slowness isn't weakness. It's precision. I scrolled further. Found a gem from last month. I needed that last night. Let's do a quick lunch before I head home. Lunch at 1:42 p.m. She told me she was stuck in a board meeting. Her tone with him was sugary, almost girlish. Nothing like the clipped, dismissive voice she used on me lately. Then came the one that made my knuckles whiten. He's nice but dull. A placeholder. My life started late. Dull. Placeholder. It was almost funny. I built machines that carved titanium to tolerances a human hair couldn't match. I led teams, signed paychecks, kept our life, and her lifestyle, running. But in her head, I was just a bookmark holding the place until her real story began. Fine. Let's see how the story ends. I clicked save on the screenshots, encrypted the folder, and backed it up 3 times. 1 flash drive, 1 cloud account, 1 locked archive on a second hard drive. If she tried to cry invasion of privacy later, well, let's just say there's nothing private about committing fraud against your own vows. The USB drive went into the oak box. The box went back into the drawer. I locked it, not because I thought she'd snoop, but because I liked the ritual. It felt clean. On my desk sat a yellow legal pad. My handwriting isn't pretty, but it's legible enough. I started a list. Primary proof, emails, texts, receipts. Financial trails, cross-check her work trips with bank statements. Witnesses, Celeste, her realtor friend, and maybe the bartender at the Burstone who knew her preferred table. Contingency, the revenge plan. Leave blank for now. It was the contingency that interested me most. I didn't want shouting matches or thrown plates. I wanted silence, the kind that hits like a vacuum after an explosion. I heard her shift upstairs, the faint creak of the mattress. For a moment, I pictured her face if she walked down and saw this little war table laid out. She'd probably smirk, lean in the doorway, and say, "You've lost it." Let her think that. By 1 a.m., I'd moved on to the financials. I logged into our joint account and filtered transactions by merchant. The Burstone popped up 6 times in 3 months, each charge neatly rounded like she'd tipped in cash. Smart. Too smart for the Vanessa I married, which meant he was helping her cover tracks. She'd also made 3 ATM withdrawals near Ridge Hill, an hour away. Always on days she claimed to be staging houses for her clients. The amounts weren't huge, but the timing told me enough. I opened a second browser tab and pulled up the security login for my credit monitoring account. I'd added her name to my watch list years ago, not out of distrust, but because I'd seen what overspending had done to her in her 20s. Now it served a different purpose. 2 months ago, she applied for a store card at a boutique I'd never heard of. Denied. I wondered if Jay had a taste for designer gifts, and she was trying to impress him without dipping into our joint funds. Cute. By 2 a.m., I was done for the night. The files were organized, the list was growing, and the box, still light, but heavier than it had been at the start of the evening, was back in its place. I turned off the desk lamp and sat in the dark for a few minutes. Not thinking, just letting the quiet soak in. It's a strange thing, catching someone you loved planning a future without you. You'd think the heartache would drown you. But for me, it was clarity, like a lens snapping into focus. She thought I'd be the kind of man who found out and collapsed. Or worse, who found out and forgave. No, I wasn't aiming for confrontation. I was aiming for collapse. Not mine, hers. When I finally got into bed, she stirred. "You okay?" she murmured, voice thick with sleep. "Yeah," I said, slipping under the covers. "Just work stuff?" She hummed, already half asleep again. Her hand rested on my arm for a moment before sliding away. I stared at the ceiling until morning, thinking about how slowness is misunderstood. People think it means hesitation. They don't realize it's just the sound of a blade being sharpened. The first rule of dismantling someone's life: you don't rush. The second, you don't make it look like you're the one doing the dismantling. Vanessa's life was built on a very particular kind of scaffolding, perception. She didn't just need people to like her. She needed them to admire her, to believe she was the sharpest, prettiest, most put-together person in the room. So if I was going to pull the floor out from under her, it had to be in a way that made everyone else step back from her first. That's how the seed planting started. I began with Celeste, her realtor friend, the same one who'd accidentally exposed half of Vanessa's Ridge Hill escapades in her group emails. Celeste was chatty, the type who will give you the weather, the gossip, and the last 3 digits of her bank balance if you stand still long enough. I called her up under the pretense of asking about a property for a friend from out of town. Harmless conversation, casual questions. And then, when she was good and comfortable, I let a single line drop. "Vanessa's been working late a lot lately. You two must be racking up those commissions." Silence for a beat too long. Then a laugh that didn't sound like laughter. "Well, she's certainly busy." That was it. No more fishing. Let her wonder why I was asking. Let her replay our conversation later. Maybe even mention it to Vanessa. Little fractures in the facade. Next was Greg, the bartender at the Burstone. He wasn't a friend, not really. But he knew me from the occasional business lunch and had poured Vanessa her share of client celebration drinks. I made a point of stopping by one afternoon, tipping well, and casually asking if they still reserve the corner booth for VIPs. "You mean the one your wife likes?" he said before realizing he'd stepped somewhere dangerous. I smiled. "Yeah, that one." He busied himself with wiping the counter, muttering something about how she's always in good company. Good company. I could have asked more, but I didn't need to. The point wasn't information, it was confirmation. And Greg had just handed me plenty. By the end of the week, I had touched base with half a dozen people in her orbit. Never directly accusing, never showing my hand. Just enough to make them wonder what I knew, or what she might have told me. If Vanessa's circle was her safety net, I wanted to start snipping the ropes one by one. The next seed was for Jay himself. I knew his number now, burned into my brain after scrolling through those messages at 2 a.m. I didn't call. I didn't text. Instead, I created a new contact on my phone. Vanessa, work. I used her number, but I replaced her name with the title she used in her cover stories. Then I sent a single, innocuous text. "Tuesday is going to be tricky. We'll have to move the lunch." I sent it at 9:13 a.m., knowing she was in a morning meeting and wouldn't see it until later. At 9:15, I got a reply from Jay's number. "No problem. Just tell me when." No questions. No "who is this?" He thought it was her. That was all I needed to know. He was comfortable enough to assume she'd be texting from another number, which meant they'd done it before. I didn't push it. Deleted the message, locked my phone, and went about my day like it had never happened. The seed was planted. I now knew how easily I could impersonate her if I wanted to. That night, she breezed in around 7:40, humming under her breath, cheeks flushed from showing a property. I kissed her cheek, asked about her day, and made a note of the faint lavender scent clinging to her coat, the Burstone's trademark air freshener. In the kitchen, she poured herself a glass of wine, telling me about a challenging client who just couldn't decide between 2 houses. I nodded in all the right places. Didn't challenge her story. Didn't even ask a follow-up. The trick wasn't to confront her lies. It was to let her tell them, over and over, until she started believing they were safe to tell. Meanwhile, my list on the legal pad was growing. 5. Digital impersonation, already tested, works perfectly. 6. Independent witnesses, bartender, friends, neighbors who've seen them together. 7. Public record. Look into property deeds, rental agreements near Ridge Hill. The public record search turned out to be the juiciest one yet. 2 days later, over my lunch break, I found a short-term rental listed under a shell company with Jay's name on the corporate paperwork. Cross-referenced the dates. It had been booked almost every other week for the past 3 months. Vanessa's networking nights. I printed the entire rental record, highlighting each date, and tucked it into the oak box. By this point, the box was starting to feel heavier in my hands when I opened it. Not because of the weight of the paper, but because I knew exactly what it represented: inevitability. Vanessa, meanwhile, was blissfully unaware. If anything, she seemed more relaxed than usual, like whatever stress she'd been carrying had lifted. She smiled more, texted constantly, and even tried to act affectionate with me once or twice. I played along. One evening, while she was in the shower, her phone lit up on the nightstand. A preview banner popped up. "You're incredible." Counting the hours. I didn't need to unlock it. The preview told me enough. Instead of snooping, I used the moment to test something else: timing. I waited until she was drying her hair, then casually mentioned that I might have to leave town for a few days next month. She perked up immediately. "Oh, when?" I gave her the dates that coincided with one of Jay's rental bookings. She tried to play it cool, but her "oh, okay" was just a fraction too quick. Seed planted. She'd start planning that rendezvous now, thinking I'd be conveniently gone, and I'd be exactly where I needed to be. By the end of that week, my plan was no longer a vague idea. It was a blueprint. Every seed I planted was growing, twisting through her life, loosening the connections she thought would hold her up. I wasn't going to shout. I wasn't going to throw her out. I was going to let her walk into the center of the stage, lights on, crowd watching, and then show everyone exactly who she was. And when it was over, she wouldn't just lose me. She'd lose the safety net. The audience, the applause. She thought she was playing a secret game. She had no idea I'd already designed the ending. The thing about revenge is, it has to move like clockwork. 1 second too early, and you look petty. 1 second too late, and the audience is already gone. By now, every seed I'd planted was germinating nicely. Vanessa thought her private life was airtight. Jay thought I was either oblivious or irrelevant, and her little social circle still smiled at me in that polite, distant way people smile at a man they think has been replaced but hasn't realized it yet. I decided the reveal would happen on a Tuesday. Not just any Tuesday, the one she thought I'd be out of town. That day had the perfect storm. Jay's short-term rental booked, Celeste conveniently off work, and Vanessa's calendar blocked for a networking dinner. I didn't need to guess the location. The Burstone was her second home at this point. In the 2 weeks leading up to it, I kept my routine steady. Morning coffee, work calls, small talk over dinner. Never a flicker of suspicion. If anything, I dialed back the distance and played a little warmer. I wanted her thinking the marriage was in that comfortable coasting stage, a perfect camouflage for her own disconnection. Phase 1, the invitation. The Friday before the big day, I sent an email from an anonymous address I'd created. Subject line: upcoming development proposal. The recipients: Celeste, 3 of Vanessa's networking friends, and Jay himself. The body was simple. There will be a closed-door meeting Tuesday evening at the Burstone's East Lounge to discuss a joint property venture. Please arrive promptly at 7:30 p.m. Drinks and light appetizers provided. Discretion appreciated. I made sure the tone sounded professional, even slightly pompous. The kind of thing people in her world jump at just to make sure they're in the know. The beauty? The East Lounge was not reserved for any meeting. By the time they arrived, Vanessa and Jay would be mid-evening, oblivious, until their guests walked in. Phase 2, the safety net cut. Monday night, while she showered, I used my impersonation trick again. Texted Jay from my phone with her number saved as Vanessa. Work. Looking forward to Tuesday. Wear the navy suit. It drives me crazy. His reply came before she even turned the water off. You got it. Should I bring the champagne, or do you want to order it there? I didn't respond. The less I said, the more his mind would fill in the blanks. That same night, I called Greg at the Burstone. Told him I needed the East Lounge opened at 7:15 for a private gathering. Didn't even have to give him a name. The reservation system would just list it as private and the staff would stay clear. Phase 3, the circle tightens. Tuesday morning, I left for work like normal. Kissed her on the cheek, told her I'd be back Thursday. She gave me a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes, which told me my cover story was working. At 11 a.m., I was sitting in my car in the Burstone's parking lot with a coffee, watching people come and go. I wasn't going to follow her that day. I already knew she'd show. My goal was to set up the other players. I texted Celeste from my real number. Hey, heard a rumor there's a huge property collab being announced tonight at the Burstone. You going? The bait worked faster than I expected. She replied, wait, seriously? No one told me. I'll swing by. 2 more texts to her friends, both of whom confirmed they'd drop in to see what's happening. By 6:45, I knew the room would be full enough to matter. Phase 4, the drop. Vanessa arrived first, 6:58 p.m., right on schedule for someone who liked to make an entrance. I saw her beige Range Rover pull into the lot, watched her adjust her lipstick in the rear view, then step out in the black dress Jay had mentioned. He came next, 7:05. Navy suit, smug walk, checking his reflection in every glass surface on the way in. They didn't arrive together, but they met just inside the lobby, her hand sliding into his without hesitation. I let them settle. Ordered a drink at the bar where I could see the East Lounge doors. At 7:32, Celeste walked in, flanked by the 2 other women from her networking group. They were all dressed for business, but wearing that wide-eyed expression of people expecting a big reveal. And then came the best part. Greg, the bartender, caught my eye and gave me the subtlest of nods. He'd seen them go in. I didn't need to be in the room when the door opened. I'd already arranged for that. Phase 5, the viewing party. Back at home, my laptop was running a remote session to a small camera I'd hidden in my briefcase the night before. That briefcase was now tucked under one of the East Lounge's armchairs, lens angled toward the table where I knew they'd sit. When Celeste and the others opened that door, the camera caught it all. Vanessa and Jay mid-toast, her hand on his knee, their faces snapping from laughter to confusion to pale dread in under 2 seconds. The mic wasn't crystal clear, but it didn't need to be. The visual said enough. Celeste's jaw dropping, one friend turning on her heel immediately, the other pulling out her phone like she'd just found the missing piece of gossip that would crown her queen for the month. Jay stood too fast, knocking his glass over. Vanessa tried to speak, but no one was listening. They were too busy looking at each other, recalibrating their understanding of the power couple they'd been admiring. Phase 6, the finale delivery. At 8 o'clock sharp, the footage started uploading. Not to social media, not yet. That would be too sloppy. No, it went first to my lawyer, attached to an email titled, Supplementary Evidence, Dissolution Case. CC'd every key figure in her professional life, her broker, her assistant, 2 high-profile clients. The email was polite, almost cold. Dear all, I believe it is in everyone's interest to be fully informed about recent developments. Please find attached a recording from last night's networking dinner. Regards. My full name. I didn't include commentary. Didn't call names. Just provided raw context for them to draw their own conclusions. Phase 7, the quiet aftermath. At 9:14 p.m., my phone lit up. Vanessa calling. I didn't answer. At 9:16, a text. We need to talk. Now. At 9:18, another. You're ruining me. Please. I put the phone face down on the counter and poured myself a drink. By the time I checked it again, there were 8 missed calls. The thing is, I hadn't raised my voice once. I hadn't threatened, or screamed, or begged. I'd simply let the truth walk into a room full of people she couldn't afford to lose and take a seat beside her. And that was just the opening act. Because the real ending, the one she'd never see coming, was still locked in the oak box, waiting for the day I decided her reputation wasn't enough to lose. 2 days after the Burstone, the calls slowed. Not because she'd accepted anything, but because she was too busy putting out fires. Her friends weren't calling her back. Her assistant quit. The broker issued a statement that all client accounts would be reassigned. That was all collateral damage. The oak box. That was the payload. Inside, beneath the folders of screenshots and receipts, sat a second USB drive. On it, copies of her personal tax returns for the past 5 years and the creative accounting she thought I didn't notice. She'd been skimming, small amounts, here and there, from a client staging fund I'd set up for her when she started her real estate career. In her head, it was just borrowing. In the eyes of the IRS, it was fraud. But I wasn't ready to drop that hammer yet. Not until the right person was watching. That person was Leonard, an investigator I'd used once before when a vendor tried to pass off counterfeit parts as aerospace grade. Leonard didn't do morality. He did fax, neatly packaged for whoever signed his check. I sent him a file labeled Vanessa Discrepancies. Gave him one instruction: follow the money. Quietly, Vanessa came home Friday night with the expression of someone holding together a collapsing tent in a windstorm. "We need to talk," she said. I poured her a glass of wine, slid it across the counter. "By all means." She went into a long, meandering defense. How Jay had been a mistake, how she was under pressure, how she didn't know the meeting would blow up like that. She cried in the right places, laughed bitterly in others, watching me for signs of softening. When she was done, I simply said, "You've always been good at selling houses. Shame you couldn't sell this one." She blinked, confused. "This what?" "This story. I'm not buying." That's when she tried the nuclear button, division of assets. "You know I'm entitled to half, right? You can't just throw me out." I smiled. "Half of what's legally yours?" "Absolutely." She didn't realize I'd already separated our finances, moved my investments, and locked my pension behind clauses she'd never breach. She'd walk away with the clothes she packed and whatever Jay could carry. And by the time Leonard was done, she'd be walking under the shadow of an audit. IT took Leonard 3 weeks. When he called, his voice was flat. "Your wife's been moving more than just client funds. She's been moving them offshore. Cyprus account. Same bank her boyfriend uses." He sent over a PDF with transaction trails, account numbers, even a scanned image of her signature authorizing the transfers. I didn't ask how he got it. Leonard's business was in results, not details. The cruel part wasn't just that she'd been stealing. It was that she'd been using the money to pay for Jay's failing contracting business. The next morning, the file went to my lawyer. He smiled when he saw it. "This isn't just grounds for divorce. This is grounds for prosecution." We timed the filing for a Monday morning, when the courthouse was busiest and reporters were prowling the docket for anything juicy. The charge sheet wasn't public yet, but her name on a fraud case? That would circulate fast enough. Monday morning, I dressed like any other workday. Blue shirt, clean shave, leather briefcase. I walked into the courthouse just long enough to watch her arrive. Hair perfect, makeup flawless, as if presentation could rewrite the facts. She didn't see me. At 10:03 a.m., my lawyer filed the petition for divorce and the complaint for fraud. At 10:15, a court clerk, who owed me a favor, made sure a certain business columnist received the filing notice. By noon, the headline was live. Local realtor faces fraud allegations amid divorce proceedings. She called at 12:04. I let it ring. I didn't need to say anything. Not then, not ever. Because revenge isn't about noise, it's about silence. And in that silence, she'd hear everything. The collapse of her career, the closing of doors she thought would always be open, the absence of people who'd once called her friend. The oak box was empty now. Mission complete. I slid it back into the drawer, shut it gently, and went to make myself a coffee. Some people take victory laps. I just enjoy the quiet.